Hi. Today on Mel on the Street, we have venture capitalist and macro strategist Jen Bawden. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jen.
Thank you, Mel, for having me.
So now, just to give viewers a little bit of a background, you've built companies in homeland security. You predicted the 2008 crash. You have invested in over 30 gold and silver companies. You babysat Ivanka Trump. You've hung out with the Trump family, and I want to get into that a little bit later. I want to get more into this in a little bit, but you've recently made waves with a bold open letter that you wrote on LinkedIn addressed to the Trump White House. I'm calling for a major rethink of America's approach to gold, silver, and strategic reserves. So I want to get right into that part of this. So with your open letter to US President Donald Trump, I mean, it's not every day that somebody tells a president to mark US gold reserves to market. What pushed you to write that right now?
Well, over the years, I've spent time with President Trump, Elon Musk, and Kennedy. Love them, hate them. Some do, some don't. But I can tell you they are all very smart. They all work very hard, and they all want to make a difference. So an interesting personal observation is that they're all on fast speed. We know that about Elon Musk, but I can tell you that about all three of them. Anyway, I know that they're also all aware of how close we are to catastrophic problems if the debt is not addressed aggressively. I also realize that they are caught between a rock and a hard place and that they need bold moves to stop the bleeding as it gets closer to what I call the 0 hour. Let's call it the zero debt bubble hour. They had to let the dollar drop and devalue the currency. Yes, it's a hidden tax on everyone, and they have to radically cut spending to get the fiscal house in order, or the rush from the dollar could intensify. Central banks have already figured this out and have been buying gold aggressively and have moved it to a tier one asset. Very interesting. So I believe we are entering the decade where real assets will start to replace fiat currencies as the credit bubble implodes and the currencies devalue at a faster rate. I wanted to help and get my ideas out because I knew I'd have a good chance of getting them heard. And I also seriously believe it's currently a pivotal moment in American history. President Trump is rewriting all the rules. These moments occur once in a lifetime. My philosophy on sound currency, national security, and domestic mining align with President's goals at the moment and his policy. So I figured now's the time to speak up.
So, in your career, you've invested in over 30 gold and silver mines, but you've come from a family sort of steeped in natural resources. Your father ran what was the world's largest privately owned drilling company. How did that sort of shape your understanding of commodities and the value of hard assets?
Well, understanding gold's role in the economy has been a long-standing family topic. I learned early that gold is real money, especially when the value of the US dollar fluctuates. Gold and silver have been the currency of choice for more cultures and more millennia than any alternative currency by far. And this was arrived at independently with no coordination through the ages. As for oil and gas, it represents a large percentage of the value of all commodities combined and drives such a large percentage of all the other consumption, including travel and therefore tourism, commuting and therefore office work, fertilizer and food, heating and cooling, and therefore the ability to live across climates and to work across seasons and times of day, and electricity, therefore the entire modern age. And it propels the military in all respects and therefore protects us. So you can't look at stability, security, safety, comfort, or the economy without thinking about commodities and their relationship to us, starting with oil and gas. It's all connected.
Yeah, so bringing that back a bit to the government, one of your arguments is that marking gold reserves to market could strengthen the US balance sheet by hundreds of billions of dollars. How would that actually work?
Well, the US Treasury gold price is $42.22 per ounce. So that's pretty far from the current price. At the end of quarter one, the US Treasury claimed to hold 261.5 million troy ounces. Passing new legislation to move to mark-to-market policy would value the gold at the current price of over 3,300. and thereby strengthen the US balance sheet by almost $1 trillion, 857 billion to be exact. And that would remove the incentive that currently exists to dump gold to improve the balance sheet. A new mark-to-market policy would allow the Treasury to acquire as much gold as they wanted. Because right now, the price is so low that they have no incentive to add more gold. And right now, with what's going to come in the next decade, you want as much gold as possible. You want to be loading the boat, not selling it because it's worth $42.222 an ounce.
So, Jen, you point out that about only 2% of US reserves are held in gold, although the US represents about a quarter of global GDP. Why do you think policymakers have largely ignored this imbalance? And do you think that, that's why, or part of why Trump and others are looking north, maybe at Canada?
Part of me wants to say because they have no clue. Policymakers are rarely business oriented. And they are obviously not good macroeconomists, or they would have noticed the elephant in the room. I'm referring to the day the world realizes that the emperor has no clothes and the US treasuries are propped up by our printing press. I'm an Austrian economist, and I made a bearish call on many of the markets before they crashed due to my understanding of gold and its relationship to the reserve currency. And by the way, the reserve currency devalues every year. And your question regarding Canada, Canada is an incredibly rich commodity country, as we all know. And these commodities are about to get much, much more valuable as the world moves to backing currencies with real, tangible assets. There's a statute in the US, which is Statute 31 USC 5117B, and it requires gold to be marked on the Treasury books at 42.2222 per ounce. And this has created a strong disincentive. So it stopped our expansion northward because it's not going to help our reserves so long as this statute remains law. Because Canada has a lot of gold also, and I've invested in a lot of Canadian gold mines. So what I'm trying to fix, if Trump gets the memo and actually does it, and I'm not the only person suggesting that he do this. There are a few other people in the gold world. I'm just probably the first one that wrote him a letter about it that knows he's actually going to read it. Anyway, once the incentive is for them to have gold at a higher price and to be able to put it into their treasury's reserves, then we might have a problem. But so right now, that's not what's making Trump look northward. I think he just says, wow, it's a big country. It's a beautiful people, a lot of beautiful girls there. He told me that personally. He says, I love the Canadians. He told me that personally years ago. So, and Canadians are really friendly and really nice. So I'm sure that secretly a lot of countries would like to, have Canada as their business partners or be part of it. How can you blame him? I mean, we are great people, us Canadians. So anyway, I don't think that's why he's looking northward. I think he just says lots of commodities, great country, great people, beautiful girls. And I mean, what's not to love? Of course, my Canadian friends have just, they're going wild, just, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. It's he says crazy things, and I don't think he means many of them. So I say, don't worry about it. It's just his way. He likes to create a stir. Definitely. He's a showman.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to ask you more about him in a little bit. I just
Okay.
want to ask you a couple more questions about the letter.
Absolutely.
And in that one of your suggestions is that the Treasury buy direct from the U.S. mining projects instead of inflating prices in the open market. Why
Yes.
do you think that this model is better for government and for the industry?
This is an everybody wins model, in my opinion. New mining projects can be funded and launched much more easily if they have offtake commitments. And what's a better offtake commitment partner than the US government or the Canadian government. I think Canada should do the same thing. If the US Treasury wants to allocate reserves to certain commodities for diversification, stable dollar backing, or national security, then that increased US Treasury allocation can easily achieve the added benefit of domestic production and job growth. And another great thing is that it's not going to chase up the prices, and that doesn't waste US Treasury funds. So I think that doing a public-private partnership on commodities is exactly what all governments should be thinking about now, because if they look ahead 10 years, which we'll talk about later, they're going to see that we're moving to backing of all currencies by commodities, and the BRICS is already well into that plan. I also want to mention that in the last 4 years, I've seen a number of really great new technologies that are green for mining. So you're not going to have all the big problems with killing the environment and everybody screaming and yelling because it's causing terrible poisoning, because we're fixing that. I say we, I mean all these amazing entrepreneurs that have been focused on how to do it without hurting the environment. So I think it's a great time to be pushing forward. And if we don't fix what's about to happen now, when the crash happens, it's going to be really difficult then. Better to think ahead.
In the letter, you connect precious metals to national security, and you have a lot of experience in the areas of national security. How does your experience in that world influence how you see America's resource risks?
Well, my work in national and homeland security was focused on preventing the smuggling of nuclear weapons and preparing our electric grid against a possible EMP, which is an electromagnetic pulse attack. Which, by the way, if we ever have another war, will be exactly where the countries will go. Hopefully we won't ever have an EMP, because it would set us right back to the Stone Age. So this led me to always be thinking about issues from a homeland security perspective. Precious metal policy certainly helps support the US dollar and definitely our credit risk, and also our national security. However, it is mainly the other commodities that I have advised to be included in the US Treasury reserves basket that are really more directly connected with national security. For instance, metals for manufacturing that the US buys abroad, rare earth metals, and strategic petroleum reserves. They need to be full. And now with oil at a decent price, it's time to fill it up. These allow us to protect our economy and possibly even our global economy against shocks that might occur as a result of interruptions to the oil supply. However, building up our national reserves is expensive, but if the government has them and saves them for us for a rainy day or for a war or for a currency collapse, it's a much better way to go, because they can buy them at a low, just hold on to them, and keep them safe for when we need them. I really wish that American hegemony and aggression could be a thing of the past, and that America, China, Russia, Iran, and Israel could all live in peace. Sadly, mostly men lead this beautiful world into war. The greed is colossal. So the US needs to be full of minerals and rare earths in case we get into a war. And since I have access, I want to help find as many solutions as possible. I want to make the world a better, safer, peaceful place.
It's really incredible. It kind of leads me into the next question that I wanted to ask you, because you make the case that we need a new kind of reserve system for things like graphite. Is that a response to China's dominance, or are you seeing a deeper shift in how economic power is defined?
Yes, Mel, I am convinced that in the aftermath of the biggest debt bubble in the history of the world that will pop at some point here, that the only thing the world will trust is currency backed partially by real hard assets, or maybe some will be totally backed by real hard assets, not just a piece of paper and a promise that can only be paid with a depreciating currency. The US and Canada are sitting on huge mineral and oil assets. Why not make them part of what backs up our currency before the dollar loses its reserve currency, or before the BRICS jump in with their currency backed commodities. If you can't beat them, join them. And even better, beat them to the punch. And it's a homeland security win to support the US mining efforts for rare earths. I think it's a win-win-win. I hope. I think.
Yeah, you believe in the extreme value of gold and silver. Do you also believe in cryptocurrencies?
I do. I am bullish on Bitcoin. I'm not sure that I'm big on shitcoins, as they like to call them here in America, but I am big on Bitcoin and several others. But Bitcoin is now going to be, by the way, Bitcoin hit today, this morning or last night, Bitcoin hit 104. So Bitcoin's back on the rise. The thing about Bitcoin is that it's very volatile. So I like to make money on the swings because you can make money on Bitcoin going up, money on Bitcoin going down, and that's what excites me. But I think that Bitcoin is here to stay for quite a while. For now, it sure is. And if you think about the fact that we're moving into commodities, we're moving into things that aren't devaluing, I think that Bitcoin's going to be far, far higher when Trump gets out of office. And I also think that gold and silver are going to be far higher when Trump gets out of office. I think that with gold, I like to hold the physical metal. I think it's safer. Having spent decades of my life and with my uncle in Toronto, by the way, he and I invested in dozens of mines, hottest young Canadian mines. I just want to point out that really important now that you look at North American mines, because you're going to find very soon that they're going to be closing the door worldwide in different countries. They're going to be putting in huge taxes as gold goes through the roof. You're going to find all kinds of trouble with them. Different countries deciding that they're just going to wake up one day and all of a sudden you don't own your gold mine and you don't own that gold mine's gone. I woke up one day as a young girl and a very young girl, and my father said, they just took, I think it was of our five of our drilling rigs off the coast. I think it was Iran, but five of our drilling rigs gone, like millions and millions of dollars just disappear because the country wakes up. The president wakes up one day and says, okay, I'll take those because now oil is at such a high that it's worth just confiscating them. And I think we're going to see that at some point here as gold takes its next leap upward, which it will shortly. I think we're going to see this kind of crookery happening worldwide. So I'd be cautious, and I have always been cautious for this reason, of mines outside of North America or
Yeah,
safe countries.
it's interesting because traditionally, or yeah, I mean, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it was like gold bugs versus crypto
Yeah.
bulls were almost like complete enemies, right? But you're seeing those sort of merge now where people
Yes.
are supporting both like traditional mining and crypto mining.
It happened the day after Trump got in, because now the gold bugs who really understand the macro are now looking at Bitcoin because they see that Trump has made a commitment to be buying it and really promoting it. So we're going to see Bitcoin going much, much higher over the next 3 years. I mean, everybody's so focused right now on all the tariff wars and the trouble that that's causing. And Bitcoin's going to keep doing very well. Although this is really important because I've been studying gold for my whole adult life. When the market crashes, gold goes down with the market. And when the market crashes, usually Bitcoin goes down with the market. Gold goes down with the market when you would never expect it would, but it's because people don't understand the macro picture of what's coming and why. And they've just really, the institutional investor, and we've really got central banks buying gold now. So it's going to be very interesting. We've got so far to go because we haven't even started with the regular investor looking at gold yet. We don't even hear much about gold anywhere. We've got a big push ahead. It's very exciting for us gold bugs. Yay. Our time has come finally.
It is. I want to lead right in. I just want to ask you a little bit more of a question that has a bit more of a personal background for you, because I mean, you had a career that spans fashion. You were a fashion model. You were a fashion designer. You're an 11 times best-selling author, translated in many languages globally. You were one of the top skiers in the world. We're going to cut to a short clip of you skiing now. As a freestyle ski champion, you won the Italian championships, came second in the Swiss championships, and made it to the Canadian nationals. You also spent several days with James Bond star Sean Connery near St. Moritz when you were the stunt skier in a movie with them. How do you connect all of these amazing dots? What keeps bringing you back to gold and macro strategy?
Mel, I follow my heart and I focus on what I love. I started competing in skiing in Alberta, and that led me to a number of ski modeling jobs. And that led me to designing ski clothing, and Bogner took my designs, and that led me to becoming a fashion designer in New York City. And 7 Cosmo covers later put me on the map as one of the top fashion designers in America. But I had this innate love of macroeconomics through the lens of free market Austrian school. My father and grandfather, by the way, my grandfather was the chairman of Canadian Dominion Securities, which when he died was bought by RBC, and now it's RBC Dominion. And he and my father pushed me really hard to take the job offer at Goldman in the analyst training program. But I was making more money in one day modeling than I could in a week. And they told me I'd never be able to go out and have a life. So I focused on my fashion career. And my father was not happy at all that I chose the life of a fashion entrepreneur. But all the smartest guys in New York City were at the investment banks, and I needed really smart or I was bored. So I spent all my nights learning, well, no, not all my nights, whenever I had a date, I spent learning about finance, and I'd ask them 100 questions. I went to Western, and I'd taken some classes in macroeconomics there. So anyway, I love the puzzle of trying to find out what's next and why. As an investor, I looked for unicorns that would also help humanity. That's how I found my biotech cancer technology. It was a monoclonal antibody that cured some types of cancer. And then the homeland security technology that I co-founded, and we got it from the Department of Energy. And that's what got me connected to all the generals, and that's what got me in as a leader in homeland security. Go figure, Canadian girl, just following the dots. And I really loved everything I did. And so I was very excited and worked really hard. I put my heart and soul into everything I do. So that's how all these crazy things happened in my life.
Oh, wow, it's really, really incredible. But I wanted to ask you, I mean, in your letter to Trump, you mentioned knowing the Trump family personally, that you babysat Ivanka, that you were friends with his late brother Bob, that you would spend New Year's with David Koch, and just sort of doing all of the fancy elite things with people very well connected. Can you tell me what your relationship was like with the Trump family back at that time, and maybe what you learned from them?
As an upcoming fashion designer, the ladies at lunch wanted me to make their dresses. So I found myself, Ivana Trump, my God, I mean, she's like, who's bigger and better than Ivana? So I had met Ivana many times, and Donald, at the Plaza Hotel, because there were a lot of cocktail parties. I was on this, sort of on the circuit, the social circuit on the Upper East Side. So I met them many times. I really clicked with Ivana. She was just amazing in many ways. Ivana immediately said, come over and show me all your dresses. And she ordered a whole bunch of them. And then I started having to come back over and over again. And on Ivanka's the 6th birthday, she was at the Plaza, and I was throwing a big gala. I think I was maybe even the chairman of it. And Paul came by, and he had a big emergency. He goes, Jen, it's Ivanka's 6th birthday, and I need to leave her with you. I've got a total emergency. You need to stay here, and you can't leave until I come back. And I said, and I looked at Ivanka. She was the most beautiful, sweet, gorgeous little angel child I probably ever saw in my life. And I said, just leave her with me. And I just fell in love with her, and I taught her all kinds of songs. And that was the beginning of me and my heart loving Ivanka. And so every time I went over to Ivana's house or to the Trump house with a new dress or to do a fitting, which was often, I would always go up to Ivanka's room and I'd bring her a dress too. And I skied with them in Aspen and went to, met them in was with them in Telluride. And it was a great honor for me to be able to spend time with the kids when they were young, and they were just really special kids. Eric always had a Eric always wanted to show me his, he had a sink full of bugs. Of course, I'm a girly girl, fat pink fashion designer type. And the last thing I'm interested in is bugs. But thank God the sink seemed high enough that none of the bugs could crawl out. But Ivanka she was extraordinarily special even in that time. And Donnie was a great kid, really smart. His father brought him around to Christmas parties, and I was the only person he knew there. So I'd usually have dinner with him. But really, they couldn't have done a better job on those kids. They really turned out well.
A lot of the things that Trump has done and said have been polarizing
Yes.
in Canada and across the globe. But what does the media maybe get wrong about who Trump is? Not the person that he acts as he is in front of the cameras, but like the man behind the cameras.
I think that your question regarding Trump, I think that what people don't really understand is that he's a showman, number one. I think we all know that. I think he's got to be one of the greatest showmen in the world. And that's something we haven't ever really seen in presidents. So I think that's something unique. And I think he's also very bold. And I think he realizes that there's a lot of issues that you don't see. The world doesn't see what he's dealing with. And there's some really difficult stuff that could change everything. And so you don't see that. You just see the bold moves he makes to try to fix those things. And it's hurting people. But if we don't have that pain, he's right. If we don't have that pain, we could have one of the biggest crashes ever. And I agree with him. If the Democrats had got in, we would have had one of the biggest crashes already. So it's sort of, he's in a very difficult, tight situation right now, and he's got to make bold moves. And it's not an easy job. And one of the things he has to do is cut costs. And of course, and I mean, cut them before we have a disaster. So, they're skewering Elon, and he's trying to do the best he can. I mean, he's working for free for 12 hours, 14 hours a day. So the only way he can see his kid is by bringing him with him. So anyway, I think that as far as Trump goes, he definitely is brash. He just thinking about his personality. He's very fast. He thinks fast. He moves fast. He goes through a room really quickly. He analyzes everything very quickly. I would say that he's in a really tight spot. They all are. They're between a rock and a hard place. So it's not going to be easy for them to get us out. And we don't see it. So nobody sees it because you haven't seen the big crash. You haven't seen what's coming. You haven't seen the debt bubble and where it's going and how close we are to the edge of the cliff. And they all see it. And I see it. So I have more understanding, I think, for what they're up against. And that helps me to see things through a different lens.
Yeah, and you mentioned how you believe that if the Democrats would have been elected, there would have been a big crash.
Yes.
You've also been big on predicting a bunch of other calls, the 2008 financial crash, gold's breakout, and even the 2022 downturn. What do you think people are missing seeing right now?
They're missing the fact that the biggest debt bubble in the history of the world, which is attached to currency crises globally, has not hit us yet. It's just starting, but it's there. And the question is, it's so big. So think of a bubble that's so big that nobody even knows it's there. Like it's so big that you can't even see it, but it's there. And something is going to prick that bubble. And I don't know what. Is it going to be the tariffs? Is it going to be, I don't know what's going to prick it. But if we don't start taking steps to fix it beforehand, or to at least make steps to know what we're going to do. By the way, don't you think that the central banks around the world know what's going on? And don't you think that that's exactly why they've been stocking up on gold? So, it's a lot going on right now. It's very exciting. I think that what people are missing is that the debt to GDP is skyrocketing. And I also think that we're going to see currencies playing a beggar thy neighbor game, whereby they're all going to have to devalue. And for instance, what's China going to do with all these tariff issues? They're going to devalue the yuan. And America's already devalued the dollar in quite a lot because it's one way to stimulate. So I think we're going to see a currency war. It's not going to end well. That's what's going to really push the whole world into commodity-backed currencies. And let's just say that the BRICS aren't going to stop. They're just hiding right now. They're doing everything very quietly. But when the BRICS have their currency that's going to be backed by each country's commodities, then we're going to see the whole world say, okay, well, we have to allocate 5%, maybe at first, or 4%, and then 10%. At some point, we see the world currencies doing a really big shift. And when the debt bubble pops, because we have an unsustainable debt bubble that is gigantic, and that is really what's going to cause chaos worldwide. And we need to get ready for it. We need to get ready in advance.
So, Jen, I just want to ask, in terms of the commodities sector, what should investors be paying particular attention to? And could they be more aggressive in looking at certain commodities within the space, or where should they be putting their money?
Well, I'm really excited about silver right now because it's really got a long way to catch up to gold. Silver's hovering around $33 at the moment. I think we can easily see $70 silver here at some point when it really starts to get caught up to gold. And also gold. Gold, it's been, as we know, climbing high, but it's got a lot further to go. I wouldn't be surprised at all that in the next years of this presidency that it hits 10,000 an ounce. Also, I would say Bitcoin. Bitcoin could easily, I wanted to mention regarding gold that all the gold ever mined fits into 4.6 regulation size Olympic swimming pools. So, gold is not an asset that's everywhere. I mean, 4.6 Olympic size swimming pools in the entire world of all gold that's ever been mined. I mean, when the world, and I mean the consumer, regular Joe, starts buying gold, it could double, triple, I think easily. Anyway, gold is still my favorite, number one. Number two, I love silver because silver has been lagging and has quite a ways to go. So we could see a real sprint in silver. And three, Trump's already told us that Bitcoin is going to be doing very well. And we could see $1 million Bitcoin before he leaves. So those are the three that I love. I'm worried about the markets as a whole. I think that it's always safe to listen to Warren Buffett, who says, stay out in cash right now. He's one of the smartest investors in the world. I actually got to meet him, and he was a really nice guy too. Interesting of all the people I've met who really seem to have the good hearts and are really nice people, but he was really a nice person. I'll take all my money, keep it either in cash. I wouldn't even want it US dollars. As a matter of fact, I moved into the Swiss franc maybe 3/4 of a year ago. So I would not want to have a huge amount of money in US dollars right now either. They've had to devalue the dollar quite a bit, actually. And it's one of the ways that they can get out of their predicament. So I would rather be in Swiss francs. Other commodity dollars are going to do very well as the commodity cycle really kicks in. It's just starting.
So just lastly, Jen, I want to ask you, I mean, you spent a lot of years in New York high society. You chaired the Metropolitan Gala. You founded where Robin Leach, the iconic host of the Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, is introducing you.
It takes an awful lot of hard work to organize a party like this. And you know that Jenny does a lot of things, including organizing great parties. But this, I think, is the greatest accomplishment of all the parties that Jennifer has thrown. But for those of you who did not know it, she doesn't just throw great parties. She is a fashion designer. She speaks 5 languages. She's a ski champion. And she's the author of her first book, How to Get Everything You Want in Life by Breaking the Rules, which I think is a great motto for everybody to live their lives by. Without further ado, the very lovely Jen Bawden.
So, Jen, you had the year of ambassadors, Presidents Ford, Bush, Clinton, and of course Trump, world leaders as well, like Henry Kissinger, Jack Ma, and Bill Gates, singers such as Celine Dion, Diana Ross, and iconic sports stars Muhammad Ali and Joe Namath, just to name a few. In terms of that period of your life, and what did you learn from it?
Well, first of all, it was really fun. I can't say it wasn't. It was really fun. You have, extraordinary people, brilliant minds that make it into those circles, and it is really fun. I was working really hard building my company, so my fashion company, and then building my homeland security company and my cancer company. So work hard, play hard. That's what happens in New York. What did I learn? I learned a lot of things. I learned that it doesn't matter how many billionaires or VIPs you're friends with. If they don't have good hearts, none of it matters. I also learned that the richer they are, the more everybody is hitting them up. And so I never ask for anything. And then I get to remain their friend, because everybody, sometimes it's crazy when they're not, if you're in those circles, nobody cares and nobody hits you up. Everybody's just friends. But as soon as you're at a party that has people that don't know the rules, it's like there's a lineup next to all of these big boys. And so, and they don't like it. They don't like it at all. They want to run away and go to a party where nobody's hitting them up. I also learned that most of them don't even give money to their own children. They're not spoiling their own kids. They're letting them learn from their own mistakes. So it's ridiculous that everybody's kissing up to them. What do they think? These guys are just going to throw out money or invest in all these cockamamie schemes that they're hearing one after the next? It doesn't work that way. I also learned that I want to surround myself with the smartest people with the biggest hearts and have us all work as a team to pull each other up, because otherwise it's like a bucket of crabs with everybody trying to, make it to the top, and small amount of people that are at the top. If they like you and they're your friend, you get to go to their events. You can have very interesting conversations with them, and maybe they like what you're doing, but you have to be very cautious about it. There's no pitching allowed anywhere ever in those circles. I also learned, as a single woman who dated many of them, finding somebody you love is much more important than the money, because money doesn't bring one day of happiness. And I learned that from my childhood. So I would say those are some pretty big things I learned. And I also learned that some of the richest men in the world, some of the biggest billionaires that I've met, are the cheapest. I can't understand that. If I had $1 billion, I would be running to Bangladesh, running to India, wanting to save the children, help the orphans. It would be so exciting. It would be the most exciting time of my life. But we have to work hard and make money. So, and when you have extra, I hope and plan to give as much of it as I can away.
Jen, I have enjoyed this time with you so much. I've learned a lot. I already can't wait to have you back on the show again, to talk to you again. And I thank you. I'm going to have to take you up on that.
It was really, really nice to meet you. And thank you for
It was great
everything.
meeting you. Thank you.